Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Join us for conversations on the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture as we bring you tech innovators, thought leaders, and the movers and shakers who are transforming science fiction into your new health reality. Welcome back, everybody, to Hot for Your Health, where I talk to scientists, innovators, and people who are just moving and shaking in medicine in the world. And today I have an old friend joining me again. Dr. Victor Prisk and I have known each other more than 20 years. I hate to say it because we both still look like children. But what's interesting is we're both from Chicago. Dr. Prisk was a elite collegiate gymnast, and we have the Iron Cross pictures to show it. We then met for the first time when we went to the University of Pittsburgh orthopedic surgery residency, where we served together, toiled together for a lot of years, 5 or 6 years together. And since he left there, he is while you were there, I mean, you're like me. I'm going to call you Victor. I've known you long enough. This is Dr. Yeah. He is not only an amazing orthopedic surgeon with a fellowship in foot and ankle, he is a dancer. Lindy Hop, right? Yes. He is also a professional bodybuilder and has become the go-to physician within that community and beyond. And so has a real insight in a variety of arenas. And I have learned so much from him. This is one of the books he wrote quite a while ago now, The Game Plan. And this is you actually on the cover for those watching on YouTube. So Dr. Prisk is not only a brilliant knowledge base, but he does what he says that we're supposed to do. So I'm so excited to have you back today.
Thank you, Vonda. Really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So, every time I talk to you, whether it's now or I hadn't talked to you for a few years or I met you at a meeting and you're educating me, you've always been, long before anybody else and even before me, interested in the whole person and totally integrating your practice with nutrition and muscle and the procedures we do. And so I think, unless I'm wrong, that is the perspective that you approach each and one of your patients. So when you say something like, we are addicted to sugar and starch in this country, it's not only because it mucks up our surgical outcomes, right? It's because it's a deeper argument for you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think that was something that had been really pushed a few years ago, this awareness of sugar. And I think it's something that falls out of our mindset in the front of our brains a little too much, and then you just fall back into the media telling you and the advertisements and all the things that you see and the fast foods or whatever that just say, hey, this is okay. And they try to make it seem like, well, if we put a little sprig of green on an orange juice bottle, it makes it into something green and healthy for you instead of a big jar of sugar water with some vitamin C sprinkled in. So I think that, we have to keep revisiting this and educating people into this mindset that, that there are no essential carbohydrates, essential fatty acids, and essential amino acids of protein that we have to have in our bodies, but we can live without the carbohydrates. That being said, fiber is a carbohydrate, so we have to be careful how we say that, because fiber is definitely essential. Without fiber, we have colon cancer risk, we have all sorts of other risks and things that can come up. So we want to bring awareness to that, but, the essential fatty acids and proteins and amino acids are just something that we need to focus a little bit more on in our diets. And that'll make you healthier and live the anti-inflammatory diet.
That's right. And I love that distinction for you and the calling out that there are no essential carbohydrates, because we can make in our body, the glucose we need from the fats and the proteins and all that added sugar. And people don't realize 16 pounds of added sugar if you don't read labels, if you're just consuming a month, 16 pounds a month. But something that you have always written about is one of the critical essential nutrients, which is protein in general and leucine in specific. And now the national zeitgeist around health, people are beginning to register how important protein is. But I don't really hear anybody but you calling out leucine as critical. So let's go down your leucine pathway. What is leucine? And then let's answer all the reasons it matters before we're done today. So if we start with protein as a category, get us to leucine.
Well, leucine came into my mindset and my awareness when I was doing more bodybuilding. And it was being promoted as a supplement to add leucine to your protein shakes and to your protein intake. And so, we were pushing the amount of leucine that was in our supplements when I was with Muscle Tech, and I was sponsored by them as a bodybuilder and as a doctor. And we would kind of go around selling a supplement called Leucic, which was a form of leucine that was presumably better absorbed and things. And so it was always something that I had read and researched and learned about, and I came to realize that it was much more important than just building muscle. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think nature kind of set that precedent. And as I did more research, I realized that mother's milk actually has more whey than the casein component. And that whey is much more rich in leucine. And so even in the earliest, like your very early milk production, that is even higher. It's up to almost 90% of whey rather than, like cow's milk, which can be like 60% casein and 40% whey, right? Mm-hmm. So I realized that, wait a second, this whey protein was super important in the development of the infant, okay? Mm-hmm. So what was it about that that was intriguing? I looked deeper, delved into it a little bit, just to see, got a little nerdy about it.
Yep.
And somewhere along the way, I figured out that there was a correlation between studies looking at maximal muscle protein synthesis and the same concentration of leucine as is seen in mother's milk. And I'm like, wow. Nature said we needed this at our, youngest and growing time. So maybe we should focus on this whey protein and find out what it is about it. And certainly whey protein is the richest source of the branched chain amino acid leucine.
That's right. So for going way back, for people who are not into protein in muscle, protein has 20 amino acids, the breakdown of the tissue protein, 20 amino acids, 9 are essential, meaning we can't make them, we got to eat them, and 3 branched chain, of which leucine is the one that you made the connection with its importance via breast milk, right?
And there are also, now there are 2 amino acids that cannot be converted to sugar in your body, which this becomes very important. Like, how do we do what's called gluconeogenesis? We convert fats or proteins into that glucose that we need to feed our brain and to do other functions. So what is it that...
Sorry, Natalie.
So what is it that is so special about leucine and lysine? Those are the 2 that don't convert. So when it comes to leucine, that was kind of an epiphany for me as well. Well, if leucine can't be converted to glucose, then it can be a really good signal in your body of the levels of leucine in your diet. Because when you eat it, it's not getting converted to glucose at any time. So the levels that are in your blood are kind of the levels that correlate with what you ate, right? So that can never be, it never gets shifted. So it's a really good amino acid that nature says, well, if we want something that's going to regulate muscle growth and the growth production process, which is done through something called mTOR.
Yes, mTOR.
Yes. So we want something that is consistent in the blood and correlates to the nutrition available around you. And, you know, proteins that contain a lot of leucine or higher concentrations of leucine tend to be the ones that are the most nutritious for us, you know, whether it be that whey protein that was in mother's milk, right? So nature already said that that is super important for us. But also in other proteins that are rich in leucine, they can be the healthier proteins when they're lean. So, you know, using that as a measure of the quality of the food that's coming in tells our bodies you're in an environment where you are able to hunt down your prey and eat your meat and get, you know, good nutrients because you were healthy enough to go after it and get it. It's saying that this is the healthy environment that we can grow in. Because growing and building muscle actually is a very inefficient process, and it's an energetic process that, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's hard to maintain. You have to maintain it, and to do that, you have to have good nutrition. So, you know, nature really said it right with leucine. You got to have the levels in your blood to make that move forward. So the sensor mTOR actually is very sensitive to leucine, but over time, what happens?
Leucine resistance. I read it. I read your book.
Right. So just like insulin resistance as we age, we can become resistant to leucine as well. The mTOR doesn't respond to mTOR as well, and we don't turn on those ribosomes to make muscle proteins and to make contractile proteins, and then to maintain muscle and be more mobile and stronger and maintain our balance as we age. And even mTOR is part of that whole, just any lean proteins in our bodies, whether that be bone density or enzymes that are important for the immune system, any sort of healing of injuries and things. So it's really important that we focus on ways to increase our leucine content of our meals as we age to make that mTOR, which gets resistant, more responsive. You know, insulin resistance is the same thing we're all dealing with when it comes to diabetes and the metabolic syndrome that people can experience because of their loss of sensitivity to insulin, higher levels of blood glucose, caramelization of our insides, the advanced glycation in products that ends up causing us to attack our blood vessels and all those little proteins that get make us all inflammatory. So the anti-inflammatory diet is all about leucine as well, right? It's the anti-kryptonite, I call it.
I've heard you say that, and gosh, it's just so important. Where's my bottle of leucine? Holy cow! Because I eat a lot of protein at this point. I've really shifted to trying to get, and let's talk about that because now people are wondering, okay, where do I get it? Oh my God. I tried it. People have heard me say I am focusing on 1 gram of protein per ideal pound. So I'm shooting for 130 because at this point I lift weights I power lift. I'll have to tell you that because I am trying not to become a frail old woman, let me tell you. But okay, so you've mentioned whey protein and your book says 12% of per 10 grams is leucine, right? So that's the gold standard. Yep.
Yes.
And then chicken and beef is 8% of
it could be 8 to 10. Yep.
Yep. And then beans are 6.5. Tofu and soy are about 7. So if we get a hierarchy of proteins here, protein sources, good protein sources, I mean, it really does matter what you put in because nothing comes close to whey protein.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. So it's not saying that like soy protein is not good for you. It is. It's good protein from the the vegetable proteins and things in nature, the soys, for instance, are really good. But this is what you have to think about. If you're going to have protein calories as part of your diet, and you need to get the same amount of leucine to turn on and maximize muscle protein synthesis, using soy, you need to have more. Yeah. So when it comes to whey protein, you could have like 40 grams of protein and be plenty. In a larger guy like myself, I'm going to take more protein and try and build muscle. But you might have to have 60 of the soy protein in order to achieve the same result in muscle protein synthesis.
How much leucine? Do we measure how much leucine we need in grams? In what percentage? What is the measure? Because if I'm not, but if I were to eat 130 grams of whey protein a day, 12% of which would be leucine, what is the number we want daily?
So this is, it can get really complex. And that's one of the things I learned about my leucine factor diet book is that, I focused on this kind of number for leucine, which actually the number in my book comes out to be the same as the concentration of leucine in mother's milk, which was the number came out from studies that said that a certain amount of leucine turned on muscle protein synthesis the best in these animal studies, and then in human studies as well. And it just kept coming out to the same number. It was like a total epiphany. And but that being said, it can be very complex to have to take a look at every one of your foods. And I made an app that allowed you to create and optimize that. And unfortunately, as the app store continually changes and I can't keep up with Apple iOS, I unfortunately hadn't continued that app. Maybe I'll get it restarted again. This will get me going on this. But the key is looking at the quality of your proteins and just realizing that certain proteins are a little bit better than others, and you can achieve more leucine response from those better proteins, whether it be whey versus, chicken breasts are really great. If you're going into the fish, you can look at different white fish. It can be better. And even the salmon has that whole benefit of having vitamin D, which is also vitamin D, the great regulator, the great facilitator of the action of leucine. Super important. Your vitamin D is up because it's a corticosteroid, and its job is to make you responsive to leucine. That gets into a big, complex biochemical interaction, but another episode.
Another day. Well, I take vitamin D all the time. Vitamin D and magnesium and potassium for bone health. But now there's another reason for building muscle mass, as leucine stimulates the mTOR pathway.
Oh yeah, and your metabolism is completely regulated by vitamin D and its availability, because vitamin D is another one that's very much like leucine in that, where do we get it in nature? We get it from the sun, right? And there's really not any other great sources other than when it's concentrated from sunlight absorbing things that get eaten by like salmon, right? So that being said, it says that there's a nice environment around us. We have good sunlight. We have good energy. That means that when there's plenty of energy to make those fruits and veggies that you need to eat to get your vitamins, and everything around you is plentiful, your body is okay to
build muscle. Yes.
Muscle.
I understand where you're going.
Superman got his strength from the sun, right?
That's right.
And the kryptonite is sugar.
Oh my goodness, that's right. If I could get people, do you know what, Victor, when I'm talking to people, that they will do almost everything I tell them to do. And then when I get to, we must focus on protein and stop eating processed sugar, it's like I've taken their most beloved, and I get that. You know what, I once preferred, and I still do, but I don't eat them, cookies for breakfast, because I was such a sugaraholic, right? Because we get so much dopamine from the addiction center in our brain. So I get it. I get why people don't want to give it up, but you're going to laugh at this. Look at the lengths I go to because I am a data geek. I'm not diabetic. I've been wearing this thing for a year because I'm addicted to how my blood sugar rises. And I can tell you for sure what you're saying in me and the people I serve, it's true. I can tell you, if I eat this much protein in my diet, my blood sugar will be like this all day. If I add 50 grams of sourdough in the morning, it's going to spike up to 130. It will quickly come back down, which means my pancreas is working. But I wanted to prove to myself the efficacy of protein of leveling my blood sugar. And this is no lie. It's totally like this all day long when I do what you're saying right now, which is focus on protein and high quality protein. So I don't want people to think, though, that they shouldn't eat whole foods and only, I didn't bring my bag of whey protein up here. I do have one that I supplement from every day. You're not saying we should just dump 130 grams of whey protein powder in a bottle and get it all in, right?
Well, I mean, if it helps you. I
take about 30 grams.
A scoop of 20 grams of whey protein on your oatmeal and putting cinnamon with that and mixing it up with your hand like I used to do, and then just putting your milk or your water on it and throwing it in the microwave, and that can work pretty well. If you're making some kind of a muffin or something and putting a little extra whey protein in, if you can tolerate it, that can help to achieve that. But no, I mean, you can get this stuff from doing the same thing, making a protein muffin out of eggs, and having those ready to eat, preparing your meals. And I mean, to really live a healthy life, you have to make it a lifestyle of eating healthy. So you do that by preparing your meals and not going for the quick, easy things that just are laying around, because then you get that spike of blood glucose, and then you get the insulin rise that causes a spike, and then it causes a drop, and then you get on this cycle, which I call the OJ conundrum. You drink a glass of orange juice in the morning, your insulin spikes, your levels fall, you get hungry, or now you're at work, now you got to eat something that's quick, and now there's like something like a bar sitting here or there, you eat that. And so you get into this cycle, and that's every time that glucose spikes, it's like telling your cells, hey, here's the insulin, and then it's just like giving yourself drugs every once in a while. You just have to keep turning on that resistance.
I get it. Yep, totally. And that's why I started wearing this glucose monitor. And I
did it. I think I did one.
You did one?
Yes, I did it for a while, and it was really neat. It's a really good thing. I recommend everybody try it.
I do too. You don't need to do it a year like me, but 3 months is helpful. You know what also spikes my glucose is really hard surgery. Surgery that something that I've not done in a while. I'm really in the zone about. That spikes my glucose. But you would expect that. But
cortisol, right? What does cortisol do? Its job is to move glucose from your liver, send it out, into your bloodstream so that you can run away from that tiger. And, doing that stressful surgery is our version of being attacked by a tiger. And we need to keep that under control.
Yeah, it's just interesting to watch it. Well, now you have renewed my fascination in leucine. So as we are going along, we're decreasing simple carbs, we're increasing protein and good protein like mother's milk and whey protein that has the highest leucine content. I was fascinated with this conversation in your new book proposal that talks about protein stimulates release of the triggers YY and GLP-1 in the same way that the new class of drugs that are doing a lot in our society are doing now. So let's talk a little bit about that subject, about how proteins act in the same way as GLP-1 agonists do without taking added drugs. Because here's the thing, lots of people I work with, they're midlife women, they have got to lose weight. They want to. I don't say they have to, but they want to. And so my suggestion for them is high protein, resistance training, a little bit of calorie deficit, blah, blah, blah. And listen, people, that's going to work.
Absolutely.
It's because of protein's effect on YY and GLP-1. So talk a little bit about this area.
Well, yeah, this is another thing that, part of my practice is a medical weight loss clinic, and we really like to incorporate those principles into our practice as an orthopedic surgeon, just to help people lose weight, have healthier joints, reduce inflammation in their bodies, and not have constant flare-ups and elevated uric acid and things like that cause all this inflammation. So what we really want to do is look at, well, if you do the right things and look at the leucine content of your meals, which is making sure that you're focusing your meal on that lean protein first, maybe getting in some essential fats, whether that be from something that's more omega-3 rich, whether your protein is coming from a salmon or you're adding in things like olive oil, or you're bringing in other things like that, just to help with having the calories you need. But then once you've met, all of your essential needs, then you can throw in some carbohydrates here and there to meet the rest, right? Because we know that the other two are more important. So when we're going forward with things, we think about, well, if you're doing the right thing, maybe it should make you feel good. And all the studies show that the more protein you have, the more satiated you are in your diet. And it's acting in the exact same way that these medications are working. And so what we're doing in society right now is taking medications again to say, screw what you're eating, just let me take this so it makes me feel like I already ate, and just stop eating. So what we're seeing happen is people are essentially starving themselves in some ways and ending up with very low calorie diets as a result of either the nausea and vomiting that they're doing because of this, or just the nausea in general, and you're not eating and you're not getting the protein that you need. So you're not actually doing any good for your metabolic health with these things. And so you want to build protein, you want to build muscle protein by retraining and taking, protein-rich foods. But what we're seeing with some of these medicines is that what's called sarcobesity, or you call it skinny fat, like where you're actually getting thinner, but you're losing your muscle. And I'm afraid that's what's happening here is that as you're losing that metabolic currency that is our muscle, as we continue to starve ourselves and we get this muscle loss on top of our fat loss, when you stop using these medicines, which are super expensive, and a lot of people are having trouble keeping up with getting it because of the shortages and whatever else, and then they end up not continuing. And what happens, you get hungry and you eat again, and then you have no muscle to absorb that again, you get heavier faster. And as we get older on these medications, some people are saying you should take these for the rest of your life. And I'm like, can you imagine what's going to happen with our hip fractures going forward? The people who've been on these for a long period of time now don't have the muscle to recover from a hip fracture, or we're going to be seeing, mark my words, we're going to be seeing more osteoporosis from this. I guarantee it.
Well, 1 in 2 women will already have an osteoporotic fracture in their lifetime. So it will be devastating and add to the suffering that happens in women in particular. But so I think what I hear you saying is that we should focus on things we know work, that nature has designed for us, including protein intake and working resistance training. But even for people who, for whatever decision making, they've decided to do medically assisted with GLP-1 agonists, there's a way to do it that is more healthy, meaning you have got to still eat enough protein. You have got to challenge your muscles so that you have enough progressive overload stimulation that your body wants to take the protein and stimulate the mTOR pathway, to lay down some muscle, because I have not put them up on the internet yet, but I have so many pictures. You do too. I'm taking pictures of people's knees with x-rays. The leg is this wide with less than a third in the central portion of bone and muscle. And that problem is only going to continue. Lack of muscle building, focusing on weight loss, not body recomposition, which is what I call it. I said, I'm not interested in you losing weight. I am interested in you recomposing your body with less fat, more muscle.
Yeah, that makes the most sense, right? And I think right now we're, creating an environment where we might be losing that. And so I want to backtrack a little and just say, the GLP-1s, these agonists can have some good here.
I think if done well.
You can lose weight. People are losing weight. People are living healthier. They're acknowledging things. But I don't think there's enough awareness about how important it is to maintain that protein and how important it is to change your lifestyle with it, especially as some of these heavier patients who are now can relieve their knee and hip pain and their joint pains that allow them to exercise better now. I think that once they're getting there, they really need to find a way to do the weight training, to bring the protein in, and make awareness of that. So
at what point in your medical weight management program at PAL, Prisk Orthopaedics and Wellness, do you start that? Do you start the resistance training at the same time as you start the medical intervention, or you let them see some progress with their diet, and if you give ones and then reintroduce them to the gym?
Yeah, it really depends on your individual situation, right? If you're like the lady I just saw a few hours ago, where she has, literally her range of motion in her knees is like 10 to 30, and she can't have a knee replacement, and and she's quite overweight, so we need to help her lose some weight, and she really can't exercise at all. So in that patient, we have just that one option, right? Like to help her with her diet and to help her with her metabolism, whether that be hormonally, whether it be GLPs, whether it be metformin, whether it be any of the other options that we have, like Contrave. So we will, visit those with her. But in those who can do it, I always recommend the lower impact activities, bringing in weight training as part of that always. Weight training is just something that everybody should be doing in some form or fashion, whether it be at the same time as you're doing your cardio and combining it all as one, or all the various ways. But as long as it's not always pickleball, because you in business for sure, I know it is.
Well, listen, I think there's so much to talk about, and I'm excited about you going forward with your new book, Pal Fit. So just in summary, of all the nutrients, we have essential fats, we have essential protein, amino acids. There are no essential carbohydrates. So when you focus on the protein macro, the most important one in our conversation today, because of everything it does, is leucine. And I love bringing this to the forefront, not only because, as you pointed out, nature says it's most important. Mother's milk is full of it, the whey protein that it comes from, and then how it acts in the body in the same way as GLP-1 when you get it from your diet. Victor, what do you eat?
Oh, everything in moderation, including moderation. Yeah. Do as they say, not how they do.
You've been so strict for so many years. You deserve a break, but.
Well, I need to get back to some of my more regular eating. I tend to do a little bit more of this intermittent kind of a fasting type of a thing, which isn't best for muscle protein synthesis and doesn't fit the leucine factor diet as well. But that being said, it does keep me from having crashes throughout the day. But when I do eat, and I eat regularly and try to eat healthy, I'm focusing on things like, leucine-rich proteins, whether it be cottage cheese or Greek yogurt that has no sugar added, adding some fibrous grains to those things, as well as I eat a lot of salmon, a lot of wild-caught salmon. That's like 3 or 4 of my meals a week at least. And then everything else is kind of a salad type of a thing with a protein. So the green leafy veggies with some sprinkled fruits here and there. Fruit is nature's candy, and it's a good thing to do.
I say dessert.
Yeah, I cut the cord from ice cream at night to frozen grapes. So I get some sweet from that, and that cold, refreshing feeling. So that and some concentrated grapes here and there is okay. I mean, the blonde ones, that is.
You're so funny to say it. Well, Dr. Victor Prisk, my longtime friend and colleague, orthopedic surgeon, bodybuilder, world-class dancer, I'm so excited that you came on today because I love this conversation about leucine, about the importance of protein, and we did not even get into anti-aging effect of leucine, but we will next time. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Vonda. It's really great to see you.
Good to see you. Bye-bye now. I'm Dr. Vonda Wright. See you next week.